Hello, I'm Annette. This is the Beauty Conspiracy. Welcome to the first episode of Beauty Origins. It's exactly what it sounds like. Before I jump into this episode, have you checked out my giveaway? Check out the video for the original giveaway. I'll leave that down in the bio description box. But that's not to be discussed here. That will be in the other video. Go check it out, find out what you gotta do, etc., yada yada. Let's get into this. So today we are going to be focusing on face primer. Primer for your face. To face base! We're in a glorious day and age where we have an assortment of face primers. And I don't mean just a wide variety. I mean a disgusting amount of face primer. What is a face primer exactly? A face primer is any kind of lotion, gel, cream, paste, what have you, that goes underneath your makeup, and some have skincare benefits, some do fuck all. But the general idea is it is a base product meant to extend or improve the wear of your makeup or the look of your makeup, and so on and so forth. Nowadays, there's literally a face primer for everything. Moisturizing primers, which typically the main ingredient would be hyaluronic acid or something like that, meant to hydrate or plump the skin. Mattifying primers, which will tone down your oiliness if you got an oily, greasy skin. Typically, the main ingredients in those are salicylic acid or some kind of dimethicone based product to absorb the oils as you wear it throughout the day. Pore-filling primers, which are literally not for your whole face, but are meant to smooth out pores, wrinkles, fine lines, etc., typically with silicone, dimethicone, yada yada, all the cones. Color correcting, those speak for themselves. Gripping primer, which tend to be more of a sticky formula that will help your makeup cling to your face, I'm assuming. I've never actually used one. And there's some primers with an SPF base to help you with sun protection, because who doesn't want that? Skip the step of sunscreen, just use an SPF primer. Or just use sunscreen as primer. That's the glory of primer. You can literally use anything as a primer. So this is essentially how primers have evolved. And not just over the years. Like, not over a century have primers evolved to this. Literally, in the last 10 years, 5 years, I would even go so far to say. So, what exactly was the first primer? How far back in history do we go to find primers? Well, let's jump into our historical primer facts. I can't really pinpoint a year on this one. My research on primers, although extensive, didn't really get me very far because primers are such a new product to the makeup market. In Japan was kind of really the beginning of primers, as far as anything that jumps into the primer realm that we know today. In the way back machine, we're going to Japan here. Geishas are the first recorded women of makeup, I'm going to say, that really put a type of primer on the map. I'm gonna try real hard not to butcher this. I hope to God I'm saying this correctly. Somebody correct me in the comments if I am wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is pronounced Bitsuki wax. Now these were sticks of wax, actual sticks. These sticks of wax were traditionally used by sumo wrestlers to wax their hair back. It's hair wax. Wax for your hair. Follow me, if you will.
Hey. Hey. You. Hey, you. Hello. Yes, you. You look like you're feeling a little overwhelmed there with that wide selection. Have you tried men's hair wax? Smooth it over wrinkly areas and watch it fill everything in. It'll feel a little stiff, probably a little bit uncomfortable. And don't even get me started on what it is going to do for those pores. Yeah, don't push it too hard into that nose ring area, though. But feel it. Feel the magic happening all over your face.
It's sticky.
Yeah, that's how you know it's working. That's how your makeup's gonna stick to your face.
It really did settle into my pores, though.
Oh yeah, it's gonna sit in those pores nice and deep all day long.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
Oh, it absolutely isn't. But, you know, that's the price for flawless skin.
Fair. And I feel like that's basically, if that were a thing today, how it would look. So this is editing me jumping in with a fun fact for y'all. Actually, Bitsuki wax is what the Tatcha silk canvas is based off of. It's like a smoother version of Bitsuki wax. So it's not actually as intense as I just made it seem. That was a dramatization. So there you go, fun fact. Like if you think about what inspires today's primers, that's a lot of it, is wear time. How's it gonna hold up when you sweat? How's it gonna look when your oils start coming through? Is it gonna perfectly slick over your imperfections? And that's, I think, basically why they were leaning towards using the Bitsuki wax. So it would really just create this barrier that would fill in anything, and it would last through sweaty working hours and keep all of that makeup in place. So now I'm going to jump into the early 1900s. There's not really a whole lot of options here, especially in the early 1900s. Makeup wasn't that big, but if they were to wear makeup, would either use a powdered paper to whiten areas of their face if they needed to lighten things up or absorb oil, or they would use an oiled paper if they wanted to shine up their face in certain areas. And technically that is kind of, I feel like it falls into the primer category. It's doing kind of a color correcting, and it's also on the mattifying or the glowy. So instead of using a spotlight primer, these sexy bitches were just out putting oil on their face. I mean, fuck, look at Farsali. Just putting oil on your face. So the 1920s to 60s was really when skincare kicked up. There was a lot more skincare options. Avon was on the scene. You had Mary Kay sprouting up around this time. And it was all skincare, skincare, skincare. So that's really when moisturizers came into play as primers, because you could get a selection of moisturizers. So you could get a moisturizer that was, you know, more towards a mature skin, or for a younger skin, or for an oily skin. There wasn't the selection there is today, but even then, an Avon selection of 3 to 5 different moisturizers for all women was huge. Typically, you do your skincare before your makeup anyway. And pretty much for the next like 50 to 60 years, that is all primers was moisturizers. Different moisturizers for different skin types with different benefits. And you know, you went through the 70s where natural was the best look, and most women were only using moisturizers with, say, like a little bit of blush or mascara or eyeliner. And that was like the extent of it. And again, we'll get a little more into that in foundation and the like. But for primers, it was just moisturizer. That is really all I can talk about until we get to the late 2000s. Here's the thing. I could not trace back what the first face primer was. I have a handful of options that came out around the same time, but I don't have a genuine, this product is the first. I couldn't pinpoint a brand, a product, a type of primer, nothing. Late 2000s was when, you know, MAC was really hitting its peak with the makeup artistry world. I think there was a version of their Prep and Prime was one of the first ones that really took off with MAC and makeup artists. And I know this was around in 2014 while I was in my aesthetics and makeup artistry school. So when I was learning that in 2014, that was 5 years ago. Guess what we used as primer? Moisturizer. That was it. And we were aware these products existed, but they weren't at the height of popularity. There wasn't this mass amount of primers that existed. It was MAC, Benefit, I believe, had the Professional out at that time. Those are really the only two brands I can pinpoint having some of the original primers, like specific dedicated, these have a purpose primers. And that's pretty much it. That's all we had for options. And then you look at today, literally 5 years later, and you can't buy a brand that doesn't have at least one primer in their line. Name one. I fucking dare ya. It's cool how fast we've been able to watch this one single product blow up, because every other product has kind of slowly integrated over time, and this is the only product I think that within the last, you can count on one hand how many years it's been since primers became a real thing. So to watch all these brands one by one implement this one staple item into their selection of products and to make them so versatile, it's crazy. So finally, we gotta talk about this. Are primers gonna last? There's this whole uprising of primers are bullshit. Primers don't work. Fish don't use primers. Honest to God, believe that we can safely say yes, primers are here to stay for fucking ever. And I don't mean this as in all primers are. Priming is basically skincare. That's the bottom line here, is primers blew up in the last few years, but they've always been around. They've always been around in the form of men's hair product and skincare. Moisturizing, primer, toning, primer. It's unbelievable. Who knew primers actually been around this long? I see you, sneaky primers. So even the people who are boycotting primers, they're really only boycotting specific primers, which all the power to them. It makes sense that there's some people that are just like, yeah, primers, because they really don't work for everybody. But there is a primer for everybody, and that primer is your moisturizer. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I realized there was not a lot to this one. This was kind of a dull one to start with just because it's so new. There's not a lot of research to do. I literally went through a whole minimum 50-year time span where there was no primer. Share this video with your friends if you learned something new. Next episode, gonna be concealers. We're gonna tackle that beast. My foot's falling asleep. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, if you learned something. We will see you in the next one.
Wow.